Today's interview is with Alpesh. Alpesh is a really interesting guy who has a really interesting investment story. Most notably, he's invested in an orange tree farm, a chocolate farm, and a coffee farm. So if that's not reason to listen to this episode, I don't know what is. He's done a bunch of other investments as well and been very successful. So great episode coming up for you guys today. As always, like and subscribe on Wrestling with Real Estate, the YouTube channel, the WWRE podcast. If you enjoy this episode, which I'm sure you will, please give me a 5-star rating and write me a review. And if you guys want to talk about real estate, you guys must know by now that I love to talk about real estate. So I'm looking to speak to as many of you as I can. There's a link in the description below. You can sign up for a phone call, or you can go to wrestlingwithrealestate.com. There's a sign up on that page as well. So yeah, I just want to network, get to know as many of you as I can, and see if I can help you at all. So enjoy today's fantastic episode with Alpesh. To Wrestling with Real Estate, where we look to choke slam all your real estate problems. I'm your host, former WWE wrestler and now Cirque du Soleil performer, and of course, multifamily real estate investor, Barri Griffiths. I had trouble saying my name, Barri Griffiths. And today we have Alpesh with us. Alpesh, how are you doing?
Good, Barry. How are you, sir?
I am fantastic. I'm in the Dominican Republic, so my life.
Oh man, I'm jealous.
I've got no complaints. I'm going home tomorrow. That's the only thing.
Yeah, I'm jealous. You know, I'm not. I haven't been out of my home for a while now.
Okay. You've been doing a better job of social distancing than I have, I guess. Then. Well, thanks for being here today. I'm really excited, as I was mentioning earlier. I think you've got a really cool story, and I'm excited to dive into your deals and everything that you've done. So, before that, do you want to give us a little bit of a history about yourself and kind of what your current focus is right now?
Sure. So I started as always, because I'm in San Francisco Bay Area, and most of the Indians are IT or software engineers. So that's how I started and did my master's in computer science from here, and have been working in IT. But about 5 years ago, I realized I drank the blue pill, right? Read the Rich Dad Poor Dad book in 2015, and it started changing my mindset. Since 2010, I was already running my own business on IT side, so I understood what it does. But again, the business relied on me. The business could not run without me. After reading the book, I realized that I got to start getting out of that business. I have to start looking at multiple streams of income. That was my goal. As many streams of income as I can build. That's what I wanted to do. And that's when I started investing in real estate. Of course, I was an accidental landlord from 2011, so I knew how real estate works. So I sold my that property in California and started buying out of state. So that's how I started, and then from slowly the things snowballed.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing, right? How many people Rich Dad Poor Dad is
yes.
catalyst for their career. It's absolutely amazing. I don't know how it happens. It's a great book, of course, and it's
yes.
It reaches you in the right way, I think, right? It's very simple, but it's very simple. It's mind blowing at the same time. But it's always interesting how so many people find Rich Dad Poor Dad.
So I have a podcast as well, right? And I forgot to mention, it's called Wealth Matters. And I interview a lot of people like you do, Barry, and you are doing a great job as well. And I would say about 80% of my guests so far, and I have done 90 interviews, right, have mentioned Rich Dad and Poor Dad as the life-changing book. 80%. Every time I ask them, they're like, "Oh yeah, we read the book, and that's why we, decided to jump into real estate."
Yeah.
So there is something in the book, right?
For sure, there is. Absolutely. Absolutely. So do you want to tell us a little bit about what your portfolio looks like now?
Sure. So I own small single family to duplexes, and that's how I started. I've been selling them for a while now, slowly. Again, I don't want to just start unloading them if they are performing. But yes, my goal is to start moving into larger properties, right? So then I started buying. I have still one 9-unit apartment building in Birmingham, Alabama. And then last year, I acquired or syndicated a 148-unit building in Atlanta, Georgia market. And actually, last week, I closed on my very first mobile home park, 44-unit park in Columbus, Mississippi. Again, that was so most of the time I acquire properties, I syndicate or I do joint venture if it's a smaller deal. And next week we are closing on our first senior housing facility.
Wow.
Here in Chico market. It is about 3 hours drive for me. It's a 86 units, 132 beds. We are acquiring it for 16 million. So we raised about 4 million as down payment.
Wow.
And also on top of that portfolio, I have orange tree farm in Paraguay, a coffee farm in Panama, and a chocolate farm or cacao farm in Belize. Small parcels. I shouldn't say farm, but it's a small parcel. It's more like turnkey. So I like to diversify. People call it as a shiny object syndrome. I call it as diversification. I feel like if I can go in multiple different asset types and in different asset markets, then I would be, maybe I'm capping my upside, but I'm also reducing my risk.
Yeah, very interesting, very interesting. I think is it Tony Robbins that says diversification is a free lunch? It's basically, touting the benefits of diversification, especially across asset class and across, in your case, countries,
Yes.
in a lot of different countries with different asset classes. It's a very interesting strategy. So let's dive into that a little bit. I'm interested. How did you get involved in these coffee farm, in the chocolate farm, and what was the other one? Sorry, you said
Orange tree farm.
Orange tree farm,
And
right?
all three are recession resistant, right?
Right.
Can you live without coffee? No. Can Americans or Europeans live without chocolate? No. Do we stop drinking orange juice? No, never. Right?
So true. That's fascinating. Yeah. I know I can't live without chocolate or coffee, right?
I don't drink coffee, but even though I invest, but I can't live without good chocolate, like really not, and orange juices, right?
Yeah.
Because I forgot to mention, I'm also a vegan, right? So I eat a lot of vegetarian or vegetables, lots of fruits. So all of those, I need all of those for energy as well as nutrients.
Wow, that's fun. So how did you find these deals? So you said, I'm guessing you invest passively in these deals, or
correct.
Yeah.
So great question. So the way it worked, that when I decided to jump into real estate, I am one of those guys who pulls the trigger first and then figures out where I want to target, right? I always take risk. I'm adventurous. But after taking the risk, I try to learn the process after taking the risk. Not and it's a bad strategy. It doesn't work for everyone, right? But in my case, it works most of the time, right? But I'm also actually I do not recommend anyone doing that. Neither I recommend being a tire kicker either, because most of the people they analyze till they are paralyzed, right? That's analysis paralysis mode, and they will never pull the trigger, right? So what happened is, after I started investing, I said, okay, I got to get into the weeds, right? I want to learn as much as possible about real estate and everything associated to real estate. So I started attending lots of conferences. Like literally 2018, I took a break from my IT work. I stopped working, and I was going all over US, meeting people like you, attending lots of conferences, discussing, my strategies with like-minded people, or at least who were far ahead of me in the process, right? And that's how I started meeting these people, right? So one of the, person I met is the CEO of the company who runs this coffee and cacao operations. They have both in Belize and Panama. And I started chatting. I met him, and I felt like he's a genuine guy. I met and his entire team. And then, about 11 of us did the research, and all of us invested, right? So invested means the way they do it is they buy like 50 acres of farm, and they deed it out half by acre of parcels to every investor, right? And they do handle everything. So my goal, it was more like legacy investment. So it's perfect for my, And I tell people it's perfect for your self-directed IRA, your solo 401k, etc. Because either way, you have to be stay arm's length away from your 401k money, right? And I don't want to do stock market, so this was the best choice I had. So that's how I started with coffee and chocolate. And actually, after investing, I went and visited Panama and Belize. Usually, it should be other way around. But after I had my parcel, I'm like, okay, now I'm gonna go and check it out, right? So, and after checking it out, I enjoyed the entire process, meeting them, learning about Panama and Belize and how their teams operate, how they are taking care of that. So another portion of me was that yes, I make good money, but am I doing enough for others? Mm-hmm. So these companies, coffee parcels, chocolate parcels, etc. They take care of they have social sustainability. They build schools there. They build housing for those people, those farmers who are working for them. So, I was surprised that they did not have, bathrooms or, they did not have kitchens, right? They were cooking outside. So all of those I saw and I was pretty impressed. Actually, I was happy that I invested in some of the, something like that. And that led me to finding another opportunity like this Orange Tree that was a different company in Paraguay. Again, going through conferences, meeting people, learning what they do with their money, how they are, also trying to untie some of their dollar risk. That was another idea with me, is that, yes, I live here and I would say more 90% of my investment is here. I'm like, what am I doing, right? We know that, the amount of money being dumped in the market, the dollar's gonna go down at some point, right? Right now, of course, all other currencies are going down, so dollar looks good.
Right, yeah.
But the time, there would come a time, right? The amount of, trillions of dollars which we have been pouring, especially in last 6 months, we are going to see some inflation, some dollar risk. So I wanted to have something outside, US dollar as well.
Yeah, that's so interesting to me, and I think it's so great as well that you were able to go out there and see that not only are you getting a return on your money, and it's an investment, of course, but like you said, you're helping build these communities and provide a better quality of life for people, and to be able to do that, I think for a lot of investors like ourselves, it's something a great bonus, right? It's very important.
Yes. It's fulfilling.
You not only you do well, but you do good, right? I think it's
exactly
benefit, yeah. And I think it's I really enjoy the fact that you're fire ready aim, right? You fire first, and then it avoids that analysis by analysis paralysis, right? Because a lot of people get into that over analyzing everything and worrying about everything. Yes. And like you said, it doesn't work for everyone, but it definitely has worked for you. So I think that's a really cool story for people to kind of realize as well, that there is different kind of investments out there and that you can diversify, and that there are different options. I'd be interested as well. How do they structure that with you guys? How do they there's probably not a preferred return. There's probably a few years of wait. Yeah. How are they structured?
So basically, you fill out the entity name, or if it's going to be in your name, and of course, if you are a U.S. citizen, it's very easy actually, because U.S. has a treaty with Panama as well as Belize, and believe it or not, both are good English-speaking countries. They both use U.S. dollars most of the time, so you can even go there and you don't even have to exchange, right? So that's what I liked. And then once that process is complete, and you hire fund, then they just start a deeding process, right? In your name, they associate a half an acre parcel to your name, and they start the process. The process, mind you, takes at least a year. I would say about 1.5 to 2 years. It's not, most of these countries, it's not easy to get things done, right? You got to spend some money, you got to bribe this, that, I'm pretty sure, right? So all of that is given. But that in my coffee farm, it's about 3 years. They say that you will start seeing returns, and there are no preferred returns. But overall, I looked at the 20-year IRR, and it was about 12%. Okay. And that is not selling your property. Remember, when we see IRR in real estate world, when we look at syndication, 10%, 8% preferred, and then IRR of 25, 20%. But that's in 5 years, you are also selling the stake. This was over 20 years where you still have the land, right? So and you and I know we don't build land anymore. So the land value is gonna go up, even if you are not growing anything. So my goal is it becomes a legacy investment. It starts paying me in 3 years, and then every year I'm gonna start getting cash flow. And about year 5 to 7, you are going to hit the peak, and that would last for like 10 years. Those years, you would start getting, about 10% every year. So it's a good starting point, and getting in, it's not pretty expensive. It's between I think coffee farm was 18, 19 grand, and cacao farm is like 25, 27 grand. I'm pretty sure the pricing may have changed now. Also, they sell some of these parcels which already have the trees planted.
Okay.
Right? And if they have grown certain size, the pricing would be different, right? Because now you are not going to wait that long.
Right.
When I started, they were just, planting the saplings, right? So it's pretty much a small, plant, and then they grow. So there is an entire process. But I enjoyed the process of how they take out the coffee beans, how they, process them. They call it as cherries, actually. Those are cherries. And I didn't know all of that. And it was very interesting to see even the same process with cacao.
Yeah.
That they own most of their meals and everything. So that made sense that they are not relying on third party even the coffees they sell. It's Geisha coffee. I don't know if you have heard. Geisha coffee is one of the most expensive coffees in the world. It's like it was sold for $650 a pound.
Wow.
So I'm like, okay, it makes sense. And the people who drink those coffee, they are not going to change, right?
Yeah.
Even if the market corrects, those people, it doesn't matter.
True. The type of people who can afford it at 650
exactly.
coffee.
It's not Starbucks or Fitz, right?
Well, that's a cool story. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's really interesting. It's something that is not very often talked about, right? I've heard of it before. I think I heard it from the real estate guys in terms of buying coffee
yes.
and whatnot. But to think of it as a diversification and to think of it as a legacy asset as well is, I think it makes it a cool investment in so many different ways, I think. But now back to real estate. You said a lot of interesting stuff, but one, you said that you were the first property you had, you became an accidental landlord, right?
Yes.
First property. Tell us a little bit about that and what happened and how and why you became an accidental landlord.
Sure. And I think you know where this is going, but I bought my first property, my own townhouse here in the Bay Area in 2007. And as soon as I bought it, in 6 months, the market started dropping. Like literally, I could see that and again, it's not like stock market where you can keep watching Zillow and get distraught, right? That okay. But in a year, when I tried to refinance, I saw, I got to put more money down because the property value has dropped. Couple of years into it, and then my property has dropped 50%. Right? We had our first child. We wanted to have backyard for her. That was my goal. I didn't care about a large property. My goal was that she can play in the backyard. I can enjoy with her. So we decided to upgrade or upsize. That's when we said, okay, let's buy a single family house with a backyard. And I wanted to sell, but we couldn't sell because it was underwater. So I had to rent it out because I needed to pay mortgage too. So that was the story, and I became accidental landlord. So from 2011 to 15, I managed that property. So I knew what was, so even though I jumped into real estate in 2015, actually not, because I kind of went through the process and I knew what could come my way. It's just that when in 2015, I sold the property and started buying out of state, I did not realize that you have to change your mindset a little bit because, selling a $500,000 property and buying a $50,000 property is a whole different world, right? I thought, oh, this is so cheap. I can buy 10 of this and I won't have to worry, but it brought all kind of issues or problems with it, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm sorry that happened. You know, unfortunately, during that time, you know, as you know yourself, 2007, 2008, a lot of people, you know, they got negatively affected by that. Luckily, you
Oh,
know,
yes.
I have a few friends who lost properties. Luckily, you were able to hold on to it and kind of, you know, learn the process of being a landlord as well, right? It's not always about making money in real estate. Ideally, you do, but sometimes you learn lessons, you know, from mistakes, and you know, being that landlord of running that property, I'm sure you learned a lot during that process.
You mentioned, you brought up a very good point. And I tell people that success does not teach you anything. Failure is where you learn,
Yeah,
right? So that's when I learned my first investment. I learned, and every time I realized, okay, even though this seems like a success, I think I missed this, right? This so I always go back and try to evaluate what happened, even when I'm getting rid of the property, selling, whatnot. And another point you mentioned that a lot of people lost properties. I would have lost mine too. In 2009, when the market was correcting, I was let go. I was fired by my employer, a big four consulting firm. And that was the last time I worked for anyone. So I decided that I'm not going to, report to anyone, no more W-2.
yeah,
But I would have lost my property. It just did not feel morally right for me to just let go of the property when I thought I could still afford to keep it. So I did not, file for foreclosure or short sale or anything, even though it was just very easy.
yeah. I'm sure you're glad you did as well, because the foreclosure stays on your record for how long? 10 years, I think.
7 years, yeah.
Okay, so it would have
Yeah.
obviously, you know, as you try to buy in the future, probably would have
Right.
affected you negatively as well.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's interesting to me as well how, you know, a lot of people, that first deal would have killed them, right? You know,
Yes.
that happened to them. You lost your job in the same time. I'm sure it wasn't a pleasant time, but what you know, what made you able to persevere and keep going, and what about your mindset made you say, okay, real estate is still for me. I'm still going to invest in this. I'm still going to push through, and I'm still going to make it happen despite everything that happened to me.
So that, and I also co-authored a book called Resilience: how to turn your setback into a comeback. And I shared my entire story, but in a nutshell, I'm very resilient, right? Moving from lower middle class family from India, coming here with no money,
Mm.
doing my master's in computer science, and when I finished my master's, I did not have any debt. I'm still surprised when people say that I have student debt because I think this country has so many opportunities that if you do it, if you are open to working hard, if you are smart, you shouldn't have any debt, right? That it's just baffles me. So I'm very resilient and I don't quit. So that even when all of this was happening, I kept telling myself that I'm not going to quit. I still need to give it one more try. If others are doing it, I think I can do it.
Yeah.
It may take me a little bit longer, but I should be able to do it. If I have done all of that in 20 years, moving here when 9/11 had .com crashed, 9/11 happened. I was at World Trade Center on Sunday, and it happened on Tuesday.
Wow.
So I've seen my friends losing jobs because they were working in World Trade Center, right? So at that point, so I was like, if I have seen those, times, this time will also pass, right? You just got to keep working, grinding, keep working hard, and keep trying.
Yeah, yeah. And I think and resilience is such great superpower to have, right? It's, you know, some people have skills of underwriting or finding deals or whatever, but if you have resilience, you can see through anything, right? It might take you long to
Right.
get there, or you know, whatever. It might not be the straightest path to the goal, but if you have that resilience, you're always going to get there in the end. And I think, you know, for anyone out there who wants to try and nurture any kind of mindset, it's that mindset of having resilience and, you know, not wanting to quit no matter what, right? Obviously, you were never going to quit. You were never going to let whatever was happening to you affect you. You know, like you said, your story is quite inspiring to come from India and have all this that happened to you, and you know, you're still standing strong now. So I think that's testament to you and your resilience, as you mentioned.
Thank you, Barry. And one more thing to remember, and you also are an immigrant, right?
Yeah.
Don't forget about the visa issues.
Yeah.
With all of that is going on, with money issues, with you also got to work through all the visa pitfalls and issues.
Wow. You've got quite the success story. So you had that first property, and then it took you a few years, right? What took you so long? Not so long. What was the hesitation then to wait until 2015 before then moving and buying any more real estate? Was it the pain of having that property and everything that went along with it, or was there anything else that stopped you from investing until a few years later?
To tell you the truth, it's the cash problem.
Okay.
Because I
know this problem.
2011, I had already put money down for my single family house. I already had idea that, okay, I know what I want to do. It's just that I didn't know that you could invest out of, right? So I was always looking at California and thinking about, oh, if I want to buy one more, I got to have at least 100 grand down.
Mm-hmm.
And that won't be possible. So I kept investing in real estate. Stock market at that time. I was doing options, futures, forex. Lost a lot of money in that, actually, trying to become quick rich, right? Which doesn't work, by the way. It's a scam. So in 2015, when I sold that property, I had enough cash coming in, and I said, okay, now it makes sense. If I would have started looking before I had money in, then I would have realized that out of state, I could buy, properties with 20, 30,000 down. At that time, it was even 10,000 down. You could have got property. So once I started getting money in, I was able to the money I got, I bought first one I bought, and then it was a disaster, but I still kept buying. And in first year itself, I had bought 3 properties out of state.
Yeah. What made you have the comfort level to move out of state? Because I've done it myself, but a lot of people, they have that fear of investing out of state because, if you can't see it and you can't touch it and you can't visit it on a regular basis, a lot of people have that fear of investing out of state. How did you overcome that fear, and what made you feel comfortable doing that?
So great question, by the way. And lots of people feel like that. The funny thing is, I came from stock market world at that time, and I was like, am I able to go and check on Apple's records when I buy Apple stock? No. Do they allow me to go visit their offices, how we are running it? No. So I start comparing. I can barely even see what they're doing, even though they release their financial records. I see them afterwards, not beforehand. Once I become shareholder, right? So I was like, okay, if I've been doing that and I'm trusting someone else, here I got to trust the property manager. So again, it was a disaster. So I don't want anyone to start doing that unless you have built your team, or at least you have done this enough. But when I invested that much money, I was like, okay, even if I lose this, it's okay. It's not end of the world. I'm going to learn something from it. So even in that case, I bought the property and then I went there to check it out. Right? So it's the same mistake. But my next property, once I saw that property, my second one, I went and checked it out, then I bought. Right? So again, every time, one step at a time, you figure out, okay, this is what you got to do. And every property I bought, I had made some mistakes, and every time I would correct, right? Then I realized my second property, after seeing it and buying it, I realized, oh, I should have bought it better rate, right? So every time and I still own some of the properties which I have not seen for last 5 years. I have never seen them.
Wow.
Yeah, not ever. I have one in Iowa. I haven't been there. I have never been to Iowa. I don't even know where it is.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
But it's a cash cow, man.
Well, so how do you do that? How do you manage to do that? Is it? I'm guessing it's your team. You build a great team. I'm guessing is that how you've managed to do that? Because some people would hear that and they would think this is insanity. How can you do that? Right? So
yeah. Once I started bought my first property, I started looking up on turnkey providers, and I'm pretty sure the turnkey providers are the ones they buy the house directly from the seller or through wholesalers. they rehab it, they rent it out, and then they sell it, right? At pretty much the same cost as you would have bought it from realtor, or at the market price, pretty, right? So you don't have any upside anymore, but at least you have a property which is already ready to go or rented, right? So you don't have to do any of that one. That's how I started. And I don't recommend everyone do that, but it's really good for someone who wants to keep their W-2 job, who has very high demanding, high paying maybe business or whatnot. Then this becomes either you start with turnkey providers or just invest as a passive investor with syndicate, right? But after doing this, Barry, for first 5 properties, I said I can do this. So then I started flying to markets and I started building my own teams. So I have my own team right now in Dallas market, Atlanta, Birmingham. I go there, I find my own property manager, my realtor broker, insurance agent, my general contractor, property inspector, even my phase one study guy I know. So all of those guys, even and then sometimes I get a deal in my email and I'll ask one of those guys, right? What do you think? What do you think of the area? So I don't even have to now go anywhere. Because I know, and even my insurance guy, we are close friends. He's almost 60, and he would just drive to the property. As soon as I ask him to check out, what do you think from insurance side? He's like, no, I'm gonna go check it out for you first, then I'll give you a quote. So you got to just build that rapport. You have to build that team, right? If you want to start doing this or start scaling up.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's talked about all the time, and I think sometimes people can hear it too much, so that it doesn't maybe sink in. They hear team, 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 right? Everyone always talks about it, but there's a reason people always talk about it, and I think it's important that people realize that it's not just something people say. We don't talk about teams just because it sounds good and it's everyone else talking about it. It's the absolute truth. It's so important. You build a team and you have a great team, they're going to make you wealthy and they're going to take care of you, because you're going to take care of them. But I think it would be really interesting to find out, because you've done this in different markets, how you go about building a team and how you would advise. So someone now, they're looking to, okay, they've heard you talk, all right, out of state investing is for me. I'm down. Alpesh can do it. I think I can do it. Right? I have resilience as well. How would you advise them to go and build a team? How do you go about and do it?
So I would say the first thing first is start building rapport with a realtor and or a wholesaler, right? Or two, right? Start learning about the market. Speak about, I would say, go through bigger pockets, listen to podcasts or YouTube shows like this. My podcast, there are a lot of other podcasts. I still listen to tons of them. And then start picking your markets up. So what I did there, once I realized that this is what I want to continue doing, I started selling most of the properties I had bought from turnkey providers because I wanted to do it on my own. And I picked my market. Picking the market, the criteria was, of course, the job growth, which everyone talks about it all the time. Mm-hmm. Make sure the jobs are growing, right? Mm-hmm. That is my inward migration. And the third was for me is that because I'm in San Francisco Bay Area, I wanted to make sure I can fly out there as and when needed. So I wanted to have like direct flight, right? Not everyone needs it, but that was one of, so, build your own criteria and then you will land on markets. Pick about 5 markets and do more research. Start looking at properties and then reach out to realtors, wholesalers, learn what cap rates the properties go for in that area. So that's the first person you want to connect, right? And then once you have some properties, I think the next would be next important person, or actually the most important person of the team once you have the properties, property manager, right? So as soon as you start building the relationship with realtor, the next person you want to find is property manager. After that, all your stars will align. Once you have these 2 people, then of course, general contractor, property inspector, insurance broker, etc., etc.
How would you find both? Do you find them through bigger pockets and then they connect you to other people? How do you find them? And how do you vet a property manager as well? That's another, because it's one thing to find a property manager, but to find a good one is challenging, right?
Yes. Tell me about it. I have lots of horror stories, but finally I landed on some property managers who I love. and I recommend them to everyone.
Mm.
Even when I sold my properties in Dallas, I still recommend that property manager whosoever it is out, that yes, he's the guy, right? So uh, it's the way I vet it. I have a process, right? So I have like set of questionnaire. I go through and I ask them questions, and I have it's in Excel. So I create columns for each of those, property managers I discuss, and I ask about all kind of fees, right? That's one thing. I ask about how big they are. I don't want a one-person company, right? And I've seen that all the time too. Or the person who is himself an investor, he
Mm-hmm.
has like 10 properties and he manages three other properties
Mm-hmm.
for his friends. And then he calls him as property manager, right? And I think he is definitely good, but I don't want to be the scapegoat, right? Once he reaches 100 units, I'm gonna go and say yes, I'm in. So that's one of my criteria too. Like 100 units is a good size because that means they can't do it alone. They
Mm-hmm.
got to have some systems in place. I want them to using some software like Appfolio, Buildium, Rent Manager. By the way, my friend and I are building an automated property management software, which is going to compete with Appfolio, Buildium, and Rent Manager.
Okay.
So it's like basically these softwares are like Toyota. This is how we compare, or let's say Mercedes, and our software would be Tesla, right? It's fully automated. It's like you put it on self-driving. So we are working on that as well, on because I love IT and technology, right? So I wanted to marry those together, real estate and IT. But so that's important that I want them to using some automated software, so I know that I'm gonna get some good reports, right? And they will have some systems in place. I want to make sure they have their own, at least, handyman. Sometimes they can't have general contractor, but they should have their own handyman in the team. Uh, and as I said, 100 units. And I want them to own at least some properties, right? I don't want to have just a property manager who does not understand the pain of investor, right? Means, yeah, he's got, but once he has his own property, he's got to see from the other side too, right?
Absolutely, because until you've played the game, you don't understand the pain.
Yes.
And it's one thing to be working in something all day, every day, right? Because like some property managers, but until you own that property and you have something that goes wrong on your property, or you have
Right.
vacancies and you have something, whatever it is that goes wrong with that property, it's not the same. You don't feel the pain the same. And like you said, it's important. Same for me as well. That they have that experience, because then they're going to be a lot more sympathetic and understanding towards what's going on. So cool. Well, that's an interesting story, how you bought Turnkey, and then how you went to kind of do it yourself and how you built the team. So thank you for sharing that, because I think understanding how to build teams is such an important factor of what we do, right? Because we're all about
Yes.
teams. It's all about
Yeah.
teams.
Real estate is a team sport.
100%, yeah. So then you went from these single family homes, right, and a few duplexes and triplexes, right? You built some of a portfolio to 140 unit, I think. Did you?
Yes, 148.
It's 148 units. So talk about that, like going from, so it's one thing to build a portfolio of single families, duplexes, triplexes, right? And that's an achievement in itself, because a lot of people never get to that point, right? And it's
Right.
success in itself. But to go from that to 148 unit is different, right? It's the same, but it's completely different. Maybe talk about how you were able to change that mindset and how you were able to achieve that, how you were able to get to that 148 unit, because that's a great achievement.
Thank you. So it also started with, again, thinking about scaling up, because I realized that if I want to replace my income, I got to have like 100 single family houses on my own, right? I'm like, that's going to take me forever. If I buy, 3, 4, 5 properties every year, it's still going to take me like 20 years, right? Even if I jumpstart it, then going through new transaction every time, finding a new property every time. So it's 100 transactions, new loan, finding, if I don't stay in the same market, finding new property manager, building the team. So there was lots of, things involved, and there were a lot of moving parts. So I started thinking about it, and that's when I, found some of the groups who discuss about multifamily properties, right? So I started going to the meetups, and then 2018, as I said, I even attended Real Estate Guys radio syndication event, a lot of multifamily, courses and events, and I thought this is a good way to scale up. Also, don't forget about the tax benefit, because I'm always, not only that I love real estate, but there is a bigger reason why I love real estate because, the tax benefit. And I even took tax courses. Coming from IT world, I didn't have any clue. So I took some tax course. I even bought Tom Wheelwright's book, Tax Free Well, and then studied his book thoroughly. Then I took his online course as well, an entire online conference, which is like 40 hours long, and studied everything he's talking about with Robert Kiyosaki. And finally, I met both of them as well. Wow. Right? So I realized that, okay, when I buy larger properties, I have a lot more depreciation. I can do cost segregation. Now, also the TCJA, the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, even sped up the cost segregation. Now you can have 100% bonus depreciation in very cost. Even before it was still good. Now it's even better, right? So I'm like, oh yeah, see this way, not only I'm buying, but I'm not gonna pay any tax on it, right? Well, you can't go wrong. So that was my mindset. And then last year I've been looking, I just couldn't find something on my own. So I worked with one of the large operators, and they had already found the property. I already knew them. I had taken some of the multifamily learnings education from them. So once they reached out to me, I said, okay, I'm going to invest, and I have my team my investors invest as well. So I ended up raising capital and syndicating that deal with my group of investors. So that was my very first one last year, and so far going okay. And then I kept learning and learning more about it. And since end of last year, early this year, I started focusing more on actually mobile home parks and senior housing because I knew there is a recession coming at that point. And looking back from the recession we had, I saw that multifamily, mobile home parks, senior housing, self-storage, these were some of the recession-resistant assets, right? They survived. Of course, they will still go down, but they are not going to go down in every market at the same time, and they won't be down by 50%, right? So I changed my focus this year to mobile home park and senior housing. And as I mentioned, I've been trying to close those since March, actually. Finally, we are closing both of them in August.
Well, I love how you dive into everything. You go head first into everything, right? Like you talked about previously, you talked about you took a break from your job to go to all these conferences because you wanted to learn, and I think people can learn from that, right? You're just diving in, you're not just thinking about it or talking about it. You take action and you dive head first, and you're educating yourself, right? The more you learn, the more you earn, right? It's a saying.
Yeah, oh yes.
It's the saying is good, but you also have to take action with that, right? Learning by itself, you can learn every single thing there is to know about investing in the world, but if you don't take action, it doesn't mean anything. And I think you're a fantastic combination of that, taking action and learning to the max. I think it's phenomenal.
Thank you.
Cool. Well, tell us a little bit more about the mobile home parks to start off with, and then let's get into the assisted living after that. But yeah, I'll be interested. How do you find the deal? Are you doing it by yourself, or do you have a team like similar to the multifamily that you bought?
Yes. So this one, I found the deal through a mobile home park consultant. Mm-hmm. So there are some consultants out there. After learning all of this, I realized that, this time I want to have someone on my side so I don't make any mistakes. Of course, there will still be mistakes, but I don't want to have, because once you start learning more and more, you realize the value of team, as you mentioned, right? So I wanted to have all the pieces of the puzzle from the start and not, in the middle or not after I'm done. So the deal was found through one of the consultants. He helped me go through thorough due diligence. And of course, by this time, I have my own real estate attorney. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention. That's also one of your team member. It's very important team member too. So He helped me look at all the contracts, etc. And this was a cool deal actually. Um, we paid 550,000 for the mobile home park. 500 is carried back by the seller, and we are spending 250,000 to renovate the park. So basically, I needed only 300,000.
Wow.
So it's we ended up, doing joint venture with some of my friends, investor. I mean, they are going to also learn. Some of these guys, I only do joint venture who are really interested to learn about real estate as well. So it closed last week, and in a year, so we bought it at even though it's a 44 lot park, we bought it at 5 cap because only 15 are occupied.
Mm.
In a year, once all the homes are rehabbed and rented out, I'm looking at about 14, 15 cap. And once it's stabilized in 3 years, I should be able to refinance the park and get all of our money back.
Wow.
Then and pay the seller, and it's pretty much we have zero money. It's called infinite returns.
Yeah.
Right. Once you don't have anything into it, that's it.
Yeah. That sounds like a great deal. How did you guys find it? Through the consultants?
Yes. So I have been looking at deals. I have connected, and again, once you connect with realtors, brokers, wholesalers, if you don't give them feedback, they know that you are another target. Right?
Mm-hmm.
They hear from these people all the time. But in my case, when I show them this is what I have done and this is how fast I take action, once I understand and I like the property or deal whatsoever, and if something doesn't work, I also tell them upfront that this is why I'm not gonna bother even putting LOI, or even after putting LOI, I'll say, okay, this doesn't make sense. So that way they are aware of what I'm looking for. And that's how I ended up, with this mobile home park consultant, because we have been chatting. I said I want to buy some good parks, etc., and pretty much build the value up, right? Like multifamily, same way. And that's how we found the deal. And once we found the deal, I started directly negotiating with the seller, of course, to the consultant. So the consultant is going to help me moving forward in turning the park around. So we got to rehab the park. We got to rehab lots of the park-owned homes on the park. So there is a lot of work for next year or so.
Wow. Well, congratulations. You said you
Thank
closed
you.
last week, right? That's exciting.
Yes.
And to start getting into the deal and kind of get things rolling. That sounds like a fantastic deal. And what do you look for in a mobile home park? So you said you met the consultant. In multifamily, right? Most people look for the value add where you can increase rents and you can fix up the interiors and increase the NOI, increase the value of the property. What about a mobile home park? Is it something similar?
To tell you the truth, they are no different, right? It's still residential, still people need it. It's pretty much similar. The only one caveat I look for in the criteria is city or public utilities, like city, water, and sewer. That's very important. If you have well or lagoon or septic system, I don't want to deal with it right now. There are people who can deal. So that's the only additional criteria, but everything else remains same.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And so then you have closed, or you're hoping to close on an assisted living facility as well.
Yes, next week. So that was interesting because it's been delayed since April 15th. It was supposed to close, and the lender backed out because all of this happening, and so it's been getting backed out. We have been under contract since November.
Wow.
So this would be the longest.
Was it? Yeah.
So I'm keeping my fingers crossed soon if we can close. That's a pretty large facility. So again, I'm working with an operator. I have been looking at senior housing for last 3 years as well. Just the deals did not make sense because I was looking at much smaller size, and the numbers would not work. That's another thing I learned, that if you go really small in size, the numbers will not work, right? So finally, when I found an operator who was willing to just buy a large facility, already operating facility. I was like, okay, I'm going to jump on it. So I started working with him, raised capital. I'm part of the team, so I know what's going on. I'm involved in the marketing, etc. So looking forward to the closing.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So you on that deal, you found an operator who's familiar with the process of, because obviously, running an assisted living facility is a lot different to a mobile home park and a multifamily, right?
That's way different.
Yeah, you've got all legalities to worry about and medical issues and all this to kind of take into consideration. So it's something, there would be a big learning curve, I imagine, something like that. But you have found an operator, and then you're going to be the money raiser on the deal. So you're in charge of the capital.
Yeah, and I had a friend who already works in the industry. So, he was the one who helped me out, because he was the one who pushed me like 3 years ago to do this. Right. So I knew about the industry. I had learned about it. It's just that I didn't want to do it myself, because you are taking care of someone's parents, someone's uncles, and you don't want to mess it up, right? You want to make sure you have the right kind of people.
Yeah, absolutely. I came close to buying a residential assisted living myself, a house, like a single family home.
6 bed, and that's how I was looking at. 6 bed or 12 bed, right? Something like that. A 6 beds or 12 beds.
Yeah, it was a 9 bed, I think. I was actually under contract, and that's a whole nother story. I'll tell you.
3 years ago, I spent like a year looking at those facilities here in Bay Area, but again, the real estate prices were so high that the numbers will not make sense unless I leave everything and take care of the facility on my own. I'm like, I'm losing money then if I'm not doing anything else.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about this then. So how, what does a good assisted living facility deal look like? And, how are you funding it with your investors? Are you setting a preferred return? What, kind of?
Yes. So, this facility, sure. In this one, we have 8% preferred return. And basically, we are buying out investors around year 4 and returning them 150%, right? So pretty much, if they are putting 100,000 down or invest 100,000, they get 8,000 a year for 4 years. And year 4, we are refinancing and buying the investors out and giving them 150,000. Now, basically, your 100,000, you are getting 82,000. So about 18% return in 4 years. So it's a no-brainer right now, right? And it's almost guaranteed. If we do this, then you are going to get it, right? It's not where, it will go up this value and then you will take some, you'll get some, right? It's not as complicated. We try to keep it very simple so that people can see this is exactly how much you will get by year 4. And in this one, again, we had to kiss a lot of frogs to find the right, property, right? So it was a long process again. It started early last year. Finally, in November, we went into contract, and this was one of the sellers who wants to actually retire. The facility is in amazing shape, right? Yeah, they've been running. It's just that the husband-wife has been running, so now they want to retire. And I think makes sense. They are getting good payouts, 16 million, right?
Right. They own it themselves?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, they built the entire, so there are 3 portfolio of 3 facilities next to each other. And they built everything on their own about 20 years ago. We have managed it for 20. Right. So, I think the idea was that we also wanted to make sure we wanted to have, when we are starting, a stabilized property in a good condition, but also we wanted to make sure there is a lot of meat on the bone, right? So, like one of the facility out of the 3 portfolio, one of the facilities still has a huge backyard, like an acre. So if we see the demand, we can build it up, right? So that's one. Also, it's about the market. It has about 90% occupancy, but the facilities have 80% occupancy. So we have some room to grow on that side too. So those were some of the criteria we looked, and also the sellers never did any marketing. This was 80% occupancy with just word of mouth. We are hiring a professional property management company too, not just the operator, a professional property management company who knows the market. very well. And they are very sure that it's very easy for them to go up to 90% occupancy by end of year one. Because they have other facilities in the area, they are 95% occupancy.
Wow.
So we wanted to make sure there is some room in, to grow as well when we are starting out. So those were some of the things we looked at.
That sounds like a really interesting deal. So it's a case of when you guys take it over, you don't really need to do much, just have this product increase occupancy, hopefully, but it's not,
yes.
You don't have to go and do a bunch of rehab, a lot of repositioning.
No work needed at all. I've been to the facility so many times, nothing needed. It's actually immaculate. It's like in tip-top shape. The only thing is when we try to increase the occupancy, we'll take people at the market rent so that, whenever, the people who are already in the facility, whenever their renewal is up, we can also raise them up to market rent. So there is also, that is built in because we are about $100 to $400 away from market rent. So it's a pretty good gap. Even if we don't reach all the way to market rent, we still have pretty good, way to cap. Yeah. And even as it is operating, it's a 10 cap.
Wow.
So so we have a lot of room to cover without doing much.
That's great. And is so the assisted living facilities are valued on NOI, similar to the rest of the commercial. It's the same
exactly
formula. That's great. And obviously the demographics in assisted living facilities are massively in your favor. They talk the silver tsunami, right, is what they call it. Right?
Exactly.
Owners are getting older and getting ready to retire, and
next 5 years are going to be crucial. It will be huge.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. I think that's another really fascinating story and a different type of asset that not everyone is maybe aware of. I talked to a lot of people who invest in single families and duplexes, triplexes, and then also large multifamilies. But you're the first person I've had on, I think, that's talked about the assisted living facility. But I think that's a great niche that if you can find that, like yourself has found, a good operator, someone that can do that, handle the operations, and you can find a great deal to get a 10 cap, going in is pretty sweet. Cool. Well, this show is called Wrestling with Real Estate. You mentioned that before we got on the call that you're interested. You watched wrestling when you were younger, right? You made
yes
shows, right? So I'm gonna dive into some wrestling themed real estate.
Oh no!
Don't worry, they're pretty easy. They're not. I'll take it easy on you. I'm not gonna start throwing you around or anything like that. So the first one is, what would your wrestling name be? If you had a wrestling name, what would it be?
Oh man, that's a tough one. That's a tough one.
How about Mr. Resilient?
Yeah, I was just thinking Mr. Resilient Rocket or something like that.
the Resilient Rocket, I like that. The Resilient Rocket. The Resilient Rocket, I like that. So, every wrestler has a special move, right? What would your special move in real estate be? Do you have a real speciality, what is your strongest point in real estate?
That's I usually do an unanticipated move, right? Because I move. I target before anyone is prepared, right?
Yeah, I think I was going to say, I think that's your special move, taking action
right
without, without even thinking about it, almost in a good way, right? It's like
as long as I don't break my bones, I'm okay.
No, yeah, I think that's definitely a superpower you have. Amongst other ones, you have a lot of strengths, without a doubt. What's been your biggest body slam you've taken? You mentioned a few horror stories. What's been the biggest body slam you've taken in your real estate career?
The biggest one, that first real estate investment, I acquired for $35,000, and I pretty much had to sell it for $3,000.
How much?
$3,000.
Oh wow!
From 35, I just wanted to get out of it.
What happened?
It was just one after another. It was just not even in D neighborhood. I would say it's if there is E or F neighborhoods.
Okay.
That's how it was. My when I switched my property manager, he tells me, man, this area I would have to take my gun with me. I can't go by myself. And I realized, what the hell did I do? So, long story short, they stopped paying. And then after all of those, there was a water leakage. The water bill was like $3,000 a month for like 3-4 months, while the tenants were living there. So there was a lot of things. And then the house next door caught fire and affected my property. Their insurance company said, we won't cover it. My insurance company said, you know what, this, that. So I said, okay, I want to be out of it. So there was lots of things which happened one after another, right? And which is again a good education seminar for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and the resilient rocket just powered through again, right?
I try.
Yeah. What would be, not to focus on the deal too much, but if you had to, what was the lessons learned from that? If you had to go back, what would you do differently? Just not buy the property, or how would you find out, that property was in a bad area? I guess visit it, or.
Oh yeah, so learn as much as about market and location. And they say in real estate, three most important things are location, 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 right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the key in that one, right? And I could have used Trulia. I recommend people look at the crime index, look at crimereports.com, look at there is rentometer.com to understand the rental market activity over there. So there are so many tools and websites available. Of course, they were available, I think, at that time too. I just did not know about, right? But things have changed in the last 5 years. Your show, my podcast, there are tons more show and podcasts. Bigger Pockets has become so much bigger and larger. Most of the people are on it now. So there is so much available to consume, right? So that's why when I tell people that don't get into analysis paralysis mode, because there is so many ways you can learn, but that means don't just stay in learning mode, right? You also got to graduate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The fantastic thing is now with the internet and all the information that's out there, you can find out everything you need to find out about a property almost.
Oh yes.
Right.
Yeah. Google Maps.
Yeah.
Just put turn on the satellite mode, and you can just literally look at everything.
Yeah. Yeah. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. So was there a moment that you were standing on the top rope, getting ready to jump in the ring, but you were scared? What was it, and how did you overcome it?
That's actually, I was never scared.
Okay. I had a feeling you were going to say that, actually, as I was asking.
Yeah, because I'm trying to look back, and I'm like, okay, well, what's the worst that could happen? That's how I was looking at it. Again, that's a bad way to start, but I didn't know about kids at that point. I did not know about asset protection, and we didn't even touch upon that. That's another thing. If I would have known about it, maybe I would have been scared to jump, right? But I didn't even know. I didn't have clue that you got to protect your assets. We are in the most litigious country in the world, and I'm in the most litigious state in the country, right? But now that I know, I will jump, but I'll be better prepared. I'm gonna have the bungee clip and everything.
Parachute, yeah.
Yeah, everything on me. So yeah, I know where I'm going into.
Very cool, very cool. That's very interesting. So cool. Well, I think we've covered a lot today. A lot of really interesting stuff. I know I've really enjoyed it, hearing about your assisted living facility, about your mobile home park, about your large multifamily property, amongst all, the other single family properties you've done, and the diversification you've managed to create for yourself through the orange tree farm, the chocolate farm, and the coffee farm. I think it's absolutely fascinating what you do. I think we could have done this made this a 5-hour interview easily, because with all
thank you.
And we didn't even get a chance to talk about the fitness stuff, because we were
talking. Oh yeah, that I could go on for hours, and I know you can.
Yeah, absolutely. But I want to keep your time, and my wife is out there somewhere, so I better go find her as well before.
Yes, I got to go as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before we go, do you want to tell us a bit more about where people can find you, about your podcast, about any deals you have coming up, or anything like that? Tell us all about, where we can find you and how.
Sure. So you can visit my website, www.wealthmatters.com. And my email address is alpesh@wealthmatters.com. The podcast is called Wealth Matters Podcast because we know wealth does matter, right? So, and I love talking to people. I love networking. I love teaching people what I do, how I got here. So anyone is feel free to, I'll ask everyone to reach out to me, anytime. And, you and I connected as well the same way. Uh, the next deal I'm working on, actually looking at a 442 unit apartment. It's actually portfolio of 3 buildings from same seller. Going to be interesting. Just looking at it, hopefully we should finalize it soon.
A small deal, then only a small one, right?
No, this would be my largest one, so I'm scared.
Yeah. Well, I know with everything else, you'll dive into it, and you'll be a success. I can guarantee.
Yeah. As long as you keep that in mind, you don't have any other choice, right?
Yeah,
that's what I have. I don't have choice.
Absolutely. Very cool. Well, thank you for taking the time. I'll include the links to all your stuff in the description below, so anyone wants to check it out, they'll be there. And yeah, thank you so much for this great interview. I've really, really enjoyed today's interview.
Thank you, Barry.
Thank you.
We got to catch up.
Yeah, absolutely. When Vegas opens up, we'll have to catch up for sure.
Yes.